Bless and welcome back to the podcast. This episode is brought to you by Clothing. He's planting seeds at the checkout to support the brand but also the podcast.
Go hard, come a long way. When I look back at the start, riding on a wave, and we only going up, working every day.
Okay, whānau, no mai, welcome back to this episode of Planting Seeds, but this is also part of the Full Circle segment. And what we've got at the moment, we've got 4 topics in my potai. So those who are listening, my shiny bowl head is shining for the cameras right now. But we've got 4 topics. I chose 2, and then the brother Nick chose 2, and then he's going to choose what we're going to be talking about in this episode. So a lot of our styles, like off the cuff and I guess just speaking to certain things, but we've both just chosen a topic, and that's just going to dictate what we talk about.
Let's go.
Let's go, my bro.
Yeah. I'll grab it.
Read it out once you bring it out, brother.
Oh, dude. Bro, this was kind of my topic, or along the lines anyway. One of them being a dad. Being a dad. Nice one.
Cheers. So our first topic, we'll figure out a name for what this is, but it's sort of like a lucky dip topic. But our first one is around being a papa. Big one, man. And it's quite interesting. I want to start this off by a comment that was shared within our Te Ara call from our sister Mills, Millie, where we were talking about, I was in the space of relationships, so we were talking about relationships within Te Ara, and then she brought up around her relationship with her partner, and just her getting used to, and her being more aware, being a wahine Māori, and for her to sort of like now see that there are a lot of men out there who are very present fathers.
And want to be.
And
There's a desire, there's actions.
Yeah. And so when she raised that, because before she even spoke, 3 brothers, right, actually put their hand up first to ask something about how they can be better within their relationship and things of that nature, and they were all papa. And so for her to say that, one thing that I took away from that was that it's even adjustment for mama to be in a relationship or with a papa who wants to be there, because time has shown that mama have had to hold it down because they've needed to. And this comes down because of, I guess, the fatherlessness generation, where all of our tipuna went to war. And those ones who did come back, they came back to no whenua that was promised. And so that's when that cycle actually started. And being in this space now and being in this time, it's just so cool to see a lot of tāne who are actually present and want to be. So I just thought I'll start that off by just bringing that in, because that was something new to me to be aware of, because, man, it's a huge thing. And I feel even just being a papa, and those who have been in the space of healing would have some kind of experience around our traumas or our hardships come from our upbringing, and largely from our parents, because that's where the conditioning was, that's where the love or the lack of love, the attention or lack of attention came from. And so we interpret that as like trauma or hardships. And so being a papa, I know for myself that's where a lot of it comes from, and I know it wasn't intentional, but that's how I was receiving things as a young man or as a boy, and growing up into where I am now. And so there's always a big emphasis on papa, whether they're there or not there. It seems as though there's just been so much cycles where we've all felt the effect of it. And so coming back to this question, and me being a papa now, I definitely overcompensate in areas around what I thought I needed as a boy, as a baby, or as a young man, or as a teenager. So I'm aware of what I needed, and so that's what I'm like giving abundantly, to my baby now. And that's not to say that he's not going to go through anything, but for me, it's just the parenting style that feels like so good for myself. But yeah, that's how I'll start this for me, my bro.
Oh, damn, bro.
We went there.
Well, yeah, being a dad. I was made a dad by my girl, Lily Omanaya Smith. She's a beautiful little girl. She's got such a infectious spirit. She goes places, she lights it up. People are drawn to her. And I think, like, what I think about being a dad, there's lots of paths we could take. We could compare it to our upbringing, like you've started to do a little bit there. I think parenting is an opportunity almost to reparent. Like, there's a healing process through parenting. So you're speaking
100.
to some trauma potentially in the ways that you did or didn't receive love, and so you've got this now opportunity to do this with your son. But I kind of think it goes two ways. Like, the healing, yeah, it goes down, obviously. Like, we're able to learn from our parents' hardships, because I just want to, like you were kind of touching on that, like you're opening the door that it wasn't conscious, it wasn't that they were at fault. It's just the way the world was, where life was at the time. I mentioned in another podcast, it wouldn't matter, or actually I didn't say this, but it wouldn't matter if your dad was Jesus and you're I don't know if this would work for a few people out there, but your mum was Buddha, right? Like, you were, I don't mean it like that, but it wouldn't matter if you were raised by completely conscious beings. The world's unconscious, so you're going to get trauma inflicted on you.
100.
And so I think, especially when we speak about Māori, there's been a lot of trauma in our past, relatively recent, like only a few hundred years. That stuff gets passed down, and so there's unconscious coping mechanisms that we do just to survive, just to be happy, just to get through. We've got all the modern day pressures. Parents got to go to mahi. And I look up my line, back up towards my 2.0, and I look at how much my mum and my dad, we're talking about dads today, but my mum, my dad, like, things that they went through, and they've kind of made it easier for me to be even better for my kid. And I think that's the point. So I hope, my dad's not alive, but if he was, and if I say anything about my mum, I hope that they understand that, first of all, I'm real grateful that they've kind of, I see it as a way of, like, your job is to make your kids' life better, so that they then have the opportunity to experience life from, like you said, facing better challenges, not the same. So, for example, my dad grew up on a farm, no running water, far north. He had a very strict parent. He was adopted. Like, he had identity issues. He had all these different things. I'm speaking for him. I never got to have this conversation with him, but he had all these challenges. And so I can point to trauma that I've picked up from my relationship with my dad. My dad was in my life. I always knew he loved me, but he wasn't always there. He wasn't always there. And my parents separated young, so that was obviously a big factor. But I look at it and I'm just so grateful that they went through what they went through to make my life that much easier, so I can do even better for my boy and my girl. Do you know what I mean?
100.
So yeah,
It's like raising the base, see.
100.
It's like, as we think about, our lives, and we get to a stage where we become parents, and as I was saying to you earlier, it's like it welcomes this space of reflection where I think about my upbringing, and as someone growing up in my household, I had no idea, like, anything of, like, what my parents were going through in terms of their relationship, in terms of what was going on in their personal lives, in terms of financial. Like, I had no idea, and then now I'm in the position where I have a baby, and he's not going to know too much about too many things outside of his world. And so it's just such a contrast to be able to have that time to process and think about those things, because I like what you said around, your girl made you a dad. And I feel that's so, I feel that's the correct way of looking at it, because for me, it feels like as though Noah's teaching me more than I need to teach him. And I think we can get caught up in being the parent, and we mold our children to be a certain way that suits our life. And there's parts of it that's to keep them safe, which is essential, you know. But there's many parts around, you know, and I'm speaking for myself, is that my parenting style was to ensure that the way he is remains who he is, you know, and that's like quite, I'm very much so aware that I don't want too much of my conditioning, too much of the way that I behave to attach to him that changes him into a version that I've made him to be. And I know there's parts of it that is going to be required, but as a father, it's just a great privilege to observe him grow through these certain stages. And then with that comes the parenting between myself and Hinepania, because we have both different upbringings. We come from different families, and we both see things within the way that we were raised that we like and that we perhaps dislike. And so what are we doing, or what's our responsibility as parents to work through what we need to work through to ensure that we're able to provide, well, at least the best that we can for our baby, and that's us being our best selves in some way. And I see it coming out, and it's so funny just seeing these little moments, you know, with my boy, and just how funny he is, and him getting into his like personality, and just how him and Hinepani are so alike. Like, he's literally a boy version of Hinepania. Just the way they are, it's almost like they're best friends almost, and they know how to piss each other off, they know how to make each other laugh, they know how to give each other love. It's such a cool thing to observe. And what I've noticed as well with myself within I noticed it first, not last week, the week before, that I just feel way closer to him. I don't know what it is, bro, but I feel like, and it was explained to me from a friend, that it feels as though, you know, how the first parts of being a baby, it's all about baby and mum. And I feel now it's getting to a point where I have time with him, and he sort of wants me in certain ways. And that's created like so much more of a connection, and so much more of a desire to just to be more, like, be around him more. And I've always had that, but it's just gone extra around like wanting to do things with him more, around wanting just to like see and just be present with him more. So all of these different things, and man, it's the small moments that matter most to me, bro. Just the little laughs, the little cheeky things he does. But yeah, it's such a joy, and bro, it's also like super hard at times too, you know.
Yeah, well, I like what you said about there are very I guess obvious motivation to want to be a better person. They're very like, it's like there's lots of things you can use to motivate you to do that, but being a dad is one that's, if you're even a little bit open to it, it's quite an obvious cue to want to be better. And if I go back to kind of what I was saying, is it's healing, like, and what you're speaking to, you don't want your conditioning to change them too much. Well, that requires you working on yourself to removing the triggers, the things that you can't control, so that you're not unconsciously putting trauma onto your kids. And there's no judgment when that happens, because we're all unconscious. Well, some aren't, but maybe Buddha. But most of us are unconscious to some extent. At some times we go to this all the time, but we try not to do that to our kids. We I think you can go too far, helicopter parent, overdo it, and that creates its own trauma, where you're trying to run the life, and you've also judged trauma to be completely bad, because if you can't avoid trauma, and trauma is going to reveal to you over time where you're not free, where your triggers lie, then it can also be a gift. It can be alchemized into a strength and into a source of with presence, it can go to a source of power. But
I like that, alchemized into a strength. That's mean.
And but the sense of healings for self, I think the healings also, because intergenerational trauma is a real thing. It's not just conditioning from environment. So like your parents had a tough upbringing, so they've got some negative habits that then they impart on you, and it gets watered down, so it gets a little bit better as you go through the generations. But it's also in our DNA, and epigenetics is the changing of your DNA from your environment. Meaning, if you're always if you're in a highly intense traumatic home, then your state is often going to be in a state of fear, of anxiety, all these different things, and your emotions, they trigger chemicals within your body that over time that becomes your state of being, and it kind of cements in your body. And that's what physical trauma is. That's why often you do things like breath work or physical releases to get rid of it. And so we've got all this stuff, and so it gets passed on. And what we're trying to do is we're as Māori especially, we're dealing with intergenerational trauma. This is like, it's a bit of a buzzword these days, but it's real. It's a real thing. And so that's what we're trying not to pass on. And I'm really, that's what I was trying to get into before. Like, I'm really grateful of the role that the people before me have played. Like, imagine the trauma of our tupuna having their whole way of life taken from them. And then there's the fatherless generation and the urban drift and all these different things. And it applies not just to Māori, like the trauma's with everyone, right? But the healing for me is, it's for self, it's for our kids, because we get to hopefully do a bit, leverage the foundation that our parents gave us and do better. And so that's healing for them. And then I think, what's possible for them from that space? And that's my highest goal, bro, is right now, or I don't know if it's my highest, but it's like my life purpose is to create a space of spiritual, financial, and also systematic freedom from which my kids can, and myself, can create. So I'm financially free through my business. That's the goal. I'm systematically free through being able to hunt, like actually live in tune, live off the land. Like it's a foreign concept these days, but I believe there's huge value in it. Have our own food forest. This is a goal of ours. Live off the land, but have the financial freedom, because we are in this world. Money does make this world go around for most people. So have those both. And then spiritual freedom, knowing who you are, being free of your ego, as we've talked about. Imagine what's possible for our kids from that space. And so the healings, that's the highest goal for me. But I also believe it heals backwards, back up the line, because if I look at myself and Renee, my partner, I can very obviously see the traits of my dad and my mum and me in different ways. And same with Renee's mum and her dad within her in different ways. So I look at that as if we're our parents living on within us. And then if I look at my kids, Ihaya, he's got a lot of Renee's brother, Zach, shot Zach. He's got I feel a lot of her brother within him. And as he grows, as his personality develops, we'll start to notice, there's his grandmother, there's Renee, there's me. And Lily's got a lot of my mum in her. And she's got a lot of me in her, but I also see a lot of Renee in different ways. And that's starting to become more and more obvious because she's a bit older. And so the way I look at that is we're almost getting a chance to parent our parents. We're almost getting a chance to parent our siblings, because they live on down our line. And it's like, if I can think of the trauma that my dad and my mum faced, or whatever they went through, it's almost like I get a chance to love that in my kids. And I don't know exactly what that does to my parents. I don't know if it actually doesn't, but that's how I kind of feel
like
about
that.
it.
That's a mean way of looking at it, bro. Like, that's a super cool way of looking at it. Like, I've looked at it in a different way, whereas there is healing that can be done at your level for, I guess, say, your parents, their parents. Because if we think about intergenerational trauma, it's getting passed down. But then when it stops with you, then you've essentially released that trauma that's come down, you know. So you have the capacity to be able to do that healing for the line. And I've actually had like an actual healing experience where I had this major release around a particular memory that came up. And I remember just crying. It was like a wail. And that wail that came out, as I was wailing, I was like, fuck, this is not even my voice. Like, it just sounded like it wasn't even mine. And then it just gave me, like, as soon as that was happening, it was like, boom, bro, that's not yours. It's not just yours. Yeah. You know, that was your dad's. That was his dad's. And so in that moment, I realized, I was like, holy, I actually can take responsibility of doing the healing for my whānau. And it showed me that the capacity is there. Because what I've also seen within the space of healing is that sometimes because of what has happened or the perception of what has happened, it's so hard, and it's hard to let go because there's this idea, and I'm not saying that it's ruled out, but we need someone to say sorry. We need forgiveness in order to be able to let go and move on. But then we're still so vulnerable because I can't make you say sorry. And even if I make you, it takes away the purity or the essence or the intention behind what you're receiving. And so for me, in that moment, it was like, I don't actually need to bring this up, because what's my intention with this? Is it to tell my dad something and bring him into it, even though it's already done? Like, what's the purpose behind this? And the purpose for it was to be healed, but now I'm healed. So there's no reason as to why I need to keep bringing it up or welcome someone else into my own personal journey. Because as you said, it's you have the awareness around you're only being parented in the way that they know how. It's not, I truly don't believe everyone has intentions to make your life miserable or to put you in a state of suffering.
No, and even if they do, there's unconscious causes that have caused them to do it intentionally. If I punch you in the face, there's intention, but I can only be unconscious to allow myself to get that pissed off to want to punch you in the face.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good catch.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100. But then it's, it's, and I think that it gives you the capacity, and I've used that word quite a lot in just a short amount of time, but it's...
I didn't notice.
But it's because letting go is the hardest part, bro. Letting go is the hardest part. And there's a few reasons for that. One I just mentioned, then the other one that I've become aware of in my own personal journey is that it's hard to know who we are without it. Because holding on to that thing is like, as we've spoken about before, is our ego gets wrapped up in this identity of like, nah, this is who I am.
It's a victim identity.
Yeah, it's like I'm choosing, like the suffering is like all I know, this trauma, this victim kind of space that I'm in. And I'm not saying that what happened to you wasn't good, but what I'm saying is the state that you're in is because of what you're holding on to. And so the idea of letting that go is uncertain because it's now open to you needing to change. It's like a different state that you'll be stepping into, which is unfamiliar. And so that's another part that I feel is quite hard to letting go, because letting go has layers. There's like forgiveness, there's all of these different things that go on to even get to that point. Even though people want it, coming back again, what is required? And it always comes back to self. But and bringing this all the way back to parenting, it's like one of the main responsibilities that I have taken as a father is to do the necessary work for myself, so that Noah can just have his own unique challenges, have his own unique traumas, and I'm not there to prevent it, but I'm there to sort of like ensure that they are unique in a way, and just be there to support him in a way that he feels safe to. So that's what I'm working on as a father, while I just enjoy just observing, and then also me falling short and me failing at certain times, and me just working on the teamwork that me and Henipania sort of like do for our baby and for our home. So there's all of these good things, but what I do know for sure, bro, is Noah's helped me to love even more. Like, my love is like so much more deeper, not just for him, but he's made us a whānau. And so that's made me a protector. It's made me a provider. It's made me think so much more about things because I have so much more responsibility, and I like it. I like the sense of pride that I have when I talk about my family. I love the sense that I can sort of like say that I'm a papa, even though these are labels. There's so much pride behind, I guess, who he's made me, which is like fucking mean.
That's cool. I was actually going to ask you, what do you feel Noah's taught you? And I think you just answered that question, is a different kind of love. But maybe there's much more. But if I think of that, like, Lily, they both teach me different things. Lily teaches me to be soft, and it's a attribute that her mother has. They're both quite sensitive, and so I notice it very obviously with my girl. So, like, she doesn't know that we need to be at kohanga at a specific time. She doesn't even know what the time is. Do you know what I mean? So she doesn't know the importance. She has to have a shower. She's got to get dressed. We've got to brush her hair. She's got to be out the door by this time. So all these modern day expectations add pressure to a kid that a kid doesn't even consider. And at times what can happen in those, and I find it's often around the pressure of time. Like, you know, Lily just wants to play. She is present. We're not present. We've got this thing planned at a particular time. She knows about it, but she's not there. She's here. And so she just wants to play. And she's playful, she's cheeky, and it's creating friction in us trying to get out the door, basically. So I'll snap, I'll be grumpy, or I'll say, come on, Lily. And even little things, bro, like, you know, I've never hit my kids. And I don't necessarily, well, no, I do have a stance on that. But anyway, like, I don't judge people. I do think that there's another way to do things. And I've never hit my kids, but I can see how a little kid, she's just open. She just wants to spend some time with her dad. She just, maybe we've been a bit busy and I haven't had the chance to connect with her. She just wants to spend time with her dad. And I meet that with grumpiness. That makes her go like, it makes her like shut a bit. And she's very sensitive, so it doesn't need to be much for her. And she shines so bright normally that it's such an obvious cue. Like, oh man, this, like, a lot of people would think, well, she needs to harden up. But I think I just need to love her more. I need to soften. That's the lesson that she's giving me.
Bro, that's so mean, bro. Sorry to cut you off. I know you're going to carry on.
No, that's it, bro.
But that's the buzziest thing, bro, is like, why are we trying to change our children?
Yeah,
change yourself.
They're good, eh?
You know what I mean?
They're good, eh?
It's like, bro, no, your child doesn't need to change. Like, you need to change, you know? And it might come off blunt, but it's like, bro, what do you expect of a baby? They can't, they don't have the awareness. They don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But if your interaction is like not necessarily serving you, it's like, how can you change your approach? How can you create a more softer environment, you know? And so I see that, and that sort of like replicates within our household too. And it was actually a conversation that came up with myself and Hinepani. It was like, her and her mum butt heads a lot because they're the same. And because Hinepani and Noah are the same, she's like, oh man, we're going to butt heads. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to change. If you don't want that to happen, because you know,
sort your shit out, no,
like, Albert, you don't have to go through that. You know, you don't have to go through that. Like, look at your experience, and you know, you fellas didn't necessarily have the best of outcomes with things, but you don't have to give that. You don't have to have that experience with our son, you know. But it's not him that needs to change, or it'll have to be you, you know, around those little cues that might come up. So yeah, that actually came up for us, and I did sort of like put that out there, and it was like quite a crack up interaction though.
And that speaks to what, you know, I've spoken about previously, like my boy Ihai, he's still pure, and that's why I spoke about that a lot on the last podcast, amongst other things, many other things, presents, but like he's a very clear example of that. Like even Lily's like she's beautiful in every way, inside out, ahua, like beautiful every way, but she's already got things that she's responding to her environment where like sometimes she'll say to us, hurry up dad, with like an aggressive tone, and I'm like, that's from us, like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And imagine being a kid and all you're doing, you're in your world, and then you're just present. Basically, you're present, like you're in bliss, or you're just enjoying yourself, and your dad, who you love more than anything, and you just want to connect with, or your mum, or whatever, and they're like, hurry up. And do you know what I mean? Like I know that as I say this stuff, some people, again, they might feel, they just got to harden up. That's the world, and that's true. That is true. But I'm of the opposite belief a little bit. Like our kids still sleep with us, 3.5 and 5 months, and there's this whakaaro that creates a neediness and all that. But I think the opposite. I think if we if I fill them with love, then they can handle the challenge much better because they don't have this extra trauma that I've added. Like I haven't had to give them traumas to prepare them for other trauma. I've given them love to, well, that's the goal, giving them love to prepare them for trauma. And so I don't
like that.
Yeah, I'm not worried that I'm being too soft on them. I'm not worried that they'll be too clingy. And in fact, I'm getting confirmation in their ahua, in the way they are showing up in the world, because they're beautiful and they're vibrant and they both attract people. A lot of people say, like, I know probably everybody thinks this about their kids. I know everyone, but
Bias, eh?
I'm sure I am. I admit I'm biased, but people always tell me, and they say to both, they say, I love your kids, and they make a point of saying it. And I believe it's because our priority, well, first of all, I believe it's because they were born great. And then second of all, I believe our parenting style has been love first. And we fall short often, like, you know, I'll talk about being grumpy and stuff. We fall short, but that's our guiding light. And then from there, then, you know, like now we're just starting to introduce boundaries and or not just, but like within the last 6 to 12 months with Lily, she's 3.5. Some people, you know, you got to be drilled like this. Like it took us, I actually believe like routine is important now, whereas before I was a lot more flowy and
you need that.
I think it depends, like it's circumstantial in a lot of different ways. But anyway, long story short, I'm just trying to say that, just love first, and then there's lots of things like structure, like routine, like morals, like then teaching certain things, safety, of course. But the main thing I want them to know is first they know love so that they've got that confidence in themselves, so they don't have to doubt themselves when it comes to making decisions later in life. And I think they're going to have a much better chance of doing that through love.
There's so many different ways to parent, and I don't think there's so many different ways, like, to parent. Like you hear and see different stories of like someone who's had an amazing household and, you know, they've just gone off the rails. You've seen someone that's had an amazing household and then they've just done some amazing things. And then you see people who come from broken homes who repeat it, and then you see some people from broken homes and then they absolutely crack it, you know. 100%. So as you said, it's circumstantial, which is such a important thing to sort of like communicate, that no matter what, it's as long as we are doing our best, and we just got to have that whakaaro that people are doing their best with what they know. And that's exactly what I feel like I'm doing. I'm just doing the best with what I know. And it's such a massive teacher, bro, in this whole space, and, you know, what you're learning about yourself, and the thing around turning the neediness, like turning that around for yourself. I think that's huge, bro. And one thing that I did want to ask was around, what was it like going from 1 baby to 2? Because I heard that's like a pretty big jump, or like it does change things a little bit, but like what's that been like for you guys, bro?
Oh, bro, we're lucky, eh? Our boy he's that pure, like he barely cries, bro. Like the only time he cries is when he's really overtired or hungry, or he's just not being loved right. Like and I guess because we're pretty in tune with him, and because he's so open, he's such an open book, like energy wise and emotionally, I feel like we can read him quite well. So he's really easy, bro. He's so patient. He's so still. Like he is a lot like Buddha looks and Ahua. He's just, so he's made it easy. He's made it really easy. With Lily, there were some challenges, but they were like in the grand scheme of things so small, bro. Like she's been unreal. Like there was some jealousy at times, and it's only in moments, or the moments that come to mind anyway, are when I can tell that she hasn't had her time with her mum mostly, or it could be with me too, but we might have been busy, we might be at kohanga, she might be a bit overtired herself, and there's a moment when she wants her mum, and Ihaya's on the boob, and her mum can't meet her at that point in time. And I've seen her like yell, like just scream, and my girl's like a really happy-go-lucky girl mostly too, but I've seen her just scream like a rage, bro, and it was like wow. And so that was like an experience, because it was like I could just tell there was just this massive frustration and this want in a little girl, and she just let it out. And I think that's beautiful, honestly, bro. Like, because that's not bottled. If it's better out than in, you know. But so there was some challenges there, and obviously, like she was a lockdown baby. So we lived in Melbourne, lockdown for ages. Her mum was a full-time mum, and so for 2 years, just about like they were in each other's lives every day, like, and all day, because she couldn't go to kindy or kohanga or nothing, and so there was definitely a shift for her mostly. Like for us, it was mostly kind of the early stages. Like it was quite nice. We staged it. So we had in the first. So I had 2 weeks off work, which isn't much really, but her mum, Renee's mum, came up and stayed with us, and my mum's nearby too. But her mum came up and stayed with us for the first week, and she just did everything around the house. Like she just did all the washing, did everything for us, so that all we had to worry about was being there for him. So that was nice. So that first initial stage of settling in, and then we had a week where it was just us, and that was really cool too, because then we got to go through, okay, what's it like now? We've got to do all the chores, and we've got 2 kids, so it was like a step. And then I had to go back to work. Well, I didn't have to, but I went back to work. Or I had to some extent. And so then there was that. Okay, now we've got to do all the chores, and I'm at work. What's that like? And so that was helpful to step it. But honestly, apart from that stage, like I think Renee and I are just so, we both love being parents. Our kids are so, like, for the most part, really vibrant, like just, they don't give us too much headaches, you know what I mean? But in saying all of that, I think we've done it too.
Bro, I could imagine all of that, bro. Like, and you're right, like particularly having like first baby, and then, you know, always being with mama, and then another inclusion of a second baby, and mama has to give most of her attention to, you know, the new baby because it's needed, you know. And so I can already imagine our baby, bro, he'll be fucking jealous. It's like he gets jealous of me hugging Panya. I'll go and hug her, bro, and he'll be like, and he'll like squeeze and dwindle his way in the middle of us, bro. And if I kiss Panya, he'll have to kiss her and then kiss me. So I could just imagine like that kind of dynamic. And Panya looked after her newborn niece one time, and bro, Noah did not like it, eh? It was quite buzzy, and he's got this he's got this real attachment to his mother, and that is because of the titi, and that's just because of that's their kind of connection at this point in time. But what I've noticed about Noah recently, he's a bit of a bully, bro. He's a bit of a bully. He pulls hair. I don't know if it's because he doesn't have any himself. Bro, the poor boy's got my hairline.
He's not pulling yours, eh?
The poor boy's got my hairline, so hopefully he doesn't have my fate. But he pulls hair, the way he does it, it's like he has no idea what he's doing, because his facial expression is just the same. Yeah. You know, so I don't think he knows that. He doesn't know that he's hurting it, but his cousins just love him so much that they don't say anything. True. They just let him pull their hair, and it's like, oh, say it, stop doing that. Yeah. But then he's just not getting it. So it's like trying to figure out ways to make him aware around, like, that's not what you do. So trying to, because it's hard to try and break things down when a baby has like no idea what the hell is going on, but you know in your mind, like, oh, that's probably not a good thing to be doing. So we're going through that phase at the moment, but most times he's the best. It's just around his cousins that he's just can be a bit more like aggressive at times. But the other thing that I heard you talk about was like, you know, your fella's babies still sleep with you. And for me, like, because our baby still sleeps with us too, but for me, like, I would love for him to be in his own bed because of how important my relationship is. And that's like a great time to have that intimacy and that time to connect as like in the room. In the room, bro. You know? Hey, just outside of that, but it's like, you know, you go and have your day, you do everything, but at night time it's like that's where you can connect. That's when you can like have conversations. That's when you can have like hugs and touching, you know, like that's where all of that sort of like happens. But when baby's around, it's like a lot harder. And what seems to happen is Pania puts baby down, but then once he's down, she's out. Like, she's so tired because
100%.
baby's
Yeah.
been on the titty and like trying to put him down, how long it takes sometimes, she gets really tired. And so that takes away, I guess, the time that we have together. So when we do have it, it's, man, you can just feel the difference in knowing how important giving to one another is, and just in terms of presence, in terms of having that time. And so, yeah, I know I'm aware of how good it is to have that kind of time as a family, like with baby sleeping with you, because, hey, there'll be one day where you just wish and you'd want that to happen.
That's it, bro. One day they won't want to.
Yeah.
And that's so, like, people be like, oh, you know, they want to sleep there forever. But I believe, and I'll say, like, I've been proven right at every point so far. Like, for example, Lily's sweet to go to kohanga now. Like, she feels safe. And this is what we got told by the kayako there when we went there, even before she started. Like, you go there for a little look around, get a feel for it. And we told her how old she was, and she'd been at home all that time and with her mum all that time. And they said, oh, that's awesome. Like, though she won't have such attachment issues to, like, there's a trust there that's been built over time. And so when you leave, then she knows, even if she plays up, and Lily has played up, she played up for a little while, but after a while I could kind of sense that she's just playing up because she just wanted a little bit more time with her mum. She just wanted, it's like a way of getting control too. Like, she doesn't have much control in her life. So if I play up, I can get a bit more attention. I'm controlling the situation. And I could sense there was she was doing it from that space, not because she's actually traumatized about going to kohanga and leaving her mum or leaving me. And so this is where I guess intuition comes in, like you were talking before about how do you manage like your boy with the pulling hair. And it's like the way we approach things like that is, if there isn't like an obvious harm, try and teach. But I want to teach my kid, when they've got a level of consciousness to understand, to teach through them understanding the importance rather than through punishment. Yeah. And, you know, they can learn that way, like, don't do that, whack, or don't do that, go in your room, or whatever, some sort, don't do that, time out. But if it's not that bad, like, let it go. That's my opinion. And then when they're old enough to understand about boundaries and about pain and about that kind of stuff, well, then have a jam.
That's when it is, eh?
I think so. That's my approach.
Well, there's nothing much else that we can do, to be honest. Like, we look at it, and me and Panya look at each other, and we're gobsmacked. We're like, where the hell? Like, where does this come from? But he only does it like with his two first cousins, and it's quite a crack up thing. And we tell them, like, oh, just tell them, you know, don't do that to me. But they just won't, because it's buzzy how babies change people around you, eh? You know, like, even
100%.
His first cousins, bro, they're so different with other children, but then with Noah, they just, all of a sudden, they just magnetize to him, and, like, you know, they're not as rough, or they're not as this or that around, like, in other environments, which is quite buzzy. And the other thing that I noticed with Noah is he's such a social boy. Like, he waves at just strangers, and he'll like have conversations with strangers. And if he's walking and say, because I like just to let him walk, and I'll just follow behind him, and I'm in no rush to go nowhere, and he'll stop at every single person that we sort of pass, and he'll just wave and look at them, you know. So he's got like a real sociable kind of nature to him already. And it's quite funny, as you're sort of talking, the other thing that come to my mind is, we're observing our children, and we sort of like think that we know what they're up to. But imagine what a kid is actually thinking, bro. Like,
I don't know that they're thinking a ton most of the time. I think they're experiencing.
Yeah, but imagine that, bro. Like, imagine just being a kid and just you're in this out of it ass world, you know, with like all of these different people. You got all of these different things that you're taking in, and it's like
so much.
That'll be so overwhelming, eh, bro.
And that's why they're so, like, my girl's such a fast learner, bro. Like, because she's, and I can see her, like, if I give her a little bit of encouragement, I can see her, like, want to go further down that path. And I can see if there's the opposite, it makes her go small. So I can just see how love and encouragement, I'm so lucky that it's so obvious within her. Like, I can see it night and day. So it's much easier to spot. And one of the other things I wanted to touch on, about going to two kids. I know we got off there, but just going back to that quickly, like, I think one of the things I just realized that here while we were talking, I think one of the things that we've done that's really helped, and maybe, I don't know if Lily being a girl makes a difference or if it's her nature. I'm not sure because I can only speak about Lily, but she's real motherly. And so I think how we've contributed to that is we call our boy. So it's not, so it's her boy too. She calls him my boy. And actually my boys, that's what her mum, the nickname, I don't know why mum, Renee calls him, hey, my boys. And she says that, she copies that. So she has a perspective that she's like, he's hers as well. So there's like a responsibility. And I don't know that that's the reason, but I think by us doing that, she's like included rather than excluded.
Bro, she's so clever though, like the way she goes about things, and she's the only sort of like kid that calls Noah by his nickname. Like, she's the only, because she just heard us call him, and then out of nowhere she just got it straight away. And me and Pana look at like, wow, look at this kid, man. We were just cracking up. But
she's cheeky.
That's cool. That's cool how that is like some, just like language, and I like the whole whakaaro around encouragement and just fucking wholeheartedly believing in your children, Like, I've been around people recently, and they said that their mother has just always believed in them. She's just been unwavering about their belief, just single mother raising kids, and now they're doing amazing things, bro. And that's what I shared with them. I was like, man, having that belief at that age throughout your life, man, it just makes all the difference. And he was like, bro, it makes all the difference because it makes them a lot more easier to believe within themselves.
100%.
Outside of like what is happening in the world, it's like, they've got belief because they've been taught it, And so when I talk to Noah, I speak so much life over him. I'm like, fuck, you're the best baby in the world.
Spells, Those are spells. Those are spells, bro.
Bro, actual spells.
They are.
That's what I smother him with so much love, bro, and affection, and just tell him so much, like, you're going to be amazing. You're the best baby in the world. Like, really just speaking that in. That's what I'm going to continue to do throughout his life. But there's going to be a moment, and I don't know when I'm going to ask this question, but this question came to me before Noah was born, and it was around, like, I want him to tell me how he wants to be loved. I want him to express to me, or create a space where he can express to me how he wants his papa to love him. Because I'm going to love him, but then there might be something that I'm missing.
You're going to do it how you wanted it.
And how I think he needs it. But it might be, there might be blurry lines that I'm missing. And he might take it and receive it. But I think just opening up that dialogue might just create more connection that I really want to be able to do for him, and what I want for us to have is just that safety, just knowing that I'm doing my part as a papa, and if I need to change, bro, I am so willing to change. But there are boundaries. If it's just sort of like outside of this world, I'm like, nah, man, you're playing. You're playing, my boy. You're pretty good, but nah, man, no way.
And that's it, bro. And the boundaries got to come in at some point. They have to. I just choose to wait till, like, my girl's intelligent, she's smart. It might not work for all kids. Like, some kids may need, like, firmer boundaries. And my girl doesn't. Some, on one hand, because she likes to push boundaries. She likes to push them. Wonder where she gets that from. Actually, both
She's
of
on
us.
the edge, bro.
Both of us.
She's on the edge.
That's it. She loves it. But I choose to wait till she can understand. I choose to wait till, like, there's something, like, obviously, like, I've taught her very early on, like, don't go on the road. Like, it's like things like this that life and death, it's more important to import trauma on them than for them to die, to be honest, if you had to. So there's things where you got to be a bit more abrupt, but I'd rather just teach her because she's smart and she gets it. But with Ihai, it might be different. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. That's the cool thing,
because it is, you would have to change, how you are towards your different children, and I think that's like a cool thing to do, because what's working for Lily just might not work for Ihai, so 100%. That is going to shape how you interact with them and how you are with them, as opposed to being like, nah, this is what works for Lily, and now you're starting to drill, because this worked, I'm going to do this with my son and he has to do it, you know. So that's awesome awareness for you. Whereas where me and Hene Pānera, we talk about it, but man, I don't think we're ready at this point in time. You know, it's going to take a couple of years. And the main thing is like, bro, it's so hard for wahine to go through what they go through. And I can just see it firsthand, just how much of an impact it's had on Hene Pānera, like mentally, physically, because her body's changed. And she's going into a space at the moment where health is a big priority for her. But then for her to sort of like get her body back and then having to give it up again is like such a big thing for her mentally. And so for us, it's like not wanting to rush that process just because it's doing what needs to be done, or like the pressure from everyone asking, oh, when's the next one happening? It's like, nah, we've even explored, like, do we just have Noah? You know,
I thought that
we've
too.
even just explored those kinds of things, but we're just trusting our process and just going for what feels right for us. We might have another one, we might just have Noah, but at this point in time, the wellness of our whānau at this point in time is just like, is at the top, you know. And I wouldn't want us just to have another kid, but then not us to be in a better situation financially, for us to not be in better situations personally. I'd rather us to sort of like make progress in the areas that we can while we can, and then be at a point where we can make a decision if we are in a space to make a decision. If it happens, you know.
Well, you'll be different people then. Like your capacity, your favorite word. No, it'll be different then. You'll be a different person. And it's funny when your capacity's stretched. It's like how I said we stepped into having the two of them through those early weeks. Your capacity stretches without you actually realizing it. And then all of a sudden your new normal is higher, or you can do more. But I still understand what you're saying. It's the same reason why we think we're stopping at 2, and it's because we've got a lot of things we want to do. We've got we recognize we've got a lot of healing to do within ourselves still, and so it feels like adding a third child to that mix is not the best idea for everyone, for the current kids, for the new kid, for us. But that could be a story too. The pressure could make diamonds. Do you know what I mean? You don't know how it's going to turn out. But can I ask you a question?
Of course.
If you were like at some, hopefully much later in life, if you were at a point where you knew you were about to die, what would you want to have imparted on your son or your kids that would make you at peace with how you've left it for your kids? Do you know what I mean? Like how you've raised them, how you've left the world for them. What would you think you need to do to tick that box?
Bro, I've thought about like this, but maybe not in the detail that you've sort of like prompted this question with, but I've thought about dying. I think it's like healthy to actually think about dying as opposed to sort of like being fearful of it, because it's the one guarantee.
It's coming.
It's the one guarantee in life. And so my relationship with death at this point in time, it feels like healthy, you know, because the one thing that helps me have that kind of relationship with it is because I feel the way that I operate on a day-to-day basis is really in a way that tries to be more present, where joy is, that is contributing to something, is to keep growing and healing in certain ways that I need to. And so when I think about those things, it's like I think I'm doing the best that I can with where I am most days. And so if that day was to come knocking, I would be reasonably okay with it. But then I also know that there is so much more ahead of me. But then coming into the context of bringing in baby, and like what kind of
like what would you want them to know? What would you, you know what I mean? Like if you died today, bro, like would you, and let's say you still had a level of consciousness that you had awareness, like, you know, like if you believe in God, heaven, whatever, your spirit still had some awareness of what was going on. Would you be at peace knowing where your son is?
Yeah, I would. He's a he just knows love through and through. Like, that's all we've ever given him. And just knowing that his mother is just the person that she is, and she's the person who's taught me love in a different way that I've never known. And then my son has taught me love in a way that I've never known. And so if I was to part today and I think about my baby, I know that what I've given him in his short life already has been the best of me, and it's only been of good intention and of good love. He might not necessarily know it, but he would have felt it. And so for me, that's the best that I could do. But say it was like down the line a little bit, and say he's an adult, you know, and I've absolutely maximized my life, and I'm like 120. And I'm 120 because, bro, for me, like, I really, really want to have a long, fulfilled, vibrant, longevity, quality of life. Like, I really want to go that far because I just value health that much. But if he was like at the age of, say, 30 or so, and I was to part off, I just hope that his character is of a man that knows how to look after people. One of my things around raising a son is like how to treat wahine, because I've had a history where I wasn't so good at times, where I wasn't aware of what I was doing, but looking back, there were things that I could have done better. And so for me, with my baby, as a boy and him growing into a tane, me just teaching him how to value wahine, how to look after people, is something that I'm really hoping to impart to him at the very least. More so, coming back to like what you're saying, if I can create a higher base to where he has more opportunities available to him, whether that's him wanting to study, whether that's him wanting to do business, whether that's him wanting to go and travel the world, there's a base for him to be able to experience those things in life, even if I haven't, right? It's wanting him to have those kinds of things. So for him to mature, I think about my life as a parent now, that's what I'm aiming towards. Like, that's like a higher purpose that drives me at this point in time in the now, even though that's 30 years down the track or 20 years down the track. These are the kinds of thoughts that really help me sort of like continue to be my best. So yeah, haven't actually like had that question asked, which is like fucking mean to actually bring that out of me. There was a few moments where I could easily just cried, brother. But what about you, bro? What about you?
I have thought about this. That's obviously where the question comes from, I suppose. But I think there's an underlying fear which is false. Like, have I done enough? If I were to die today, can I be at peace with how I've left my little world for my kids? And I think the truth to that answer is yes, I can. And like you say, it's within what I've imparted on Renee. And I'm just speaking from my own, like, have I done enough, right? I'm so fortunate to have Renee. Our parenting styles, values, so aligned, and she's such that, like, I don't want to kind of pigeonhole her as a mum, but man, she's a great mum. So that makes being a dad pretty easy.
Hard.
But so I feel like there's a deep knowing of confidence that actually I have done enough. And I think even about things like this, like the podcast, they can know me, even if, like, my boy's 5 months, so would he know me? But first of all, I know our connection. He loves his papa. He can't sit up properly, but he tries to, just to see me, even when he's with his mum. And it's a little bit different to Lily. Lily, I had a great relationship with Lily too, but even still today, she still kind of leans her mum, and he does too. But it just feels a little bit more like he's leaning this way, a little bit more towards me, which is nice. But anyway, I know the connection I have with him. He's the youngest. Lily, I know she already knows me. I know she's got awareness. She's a brilliant, intelligent girl. So I don't worry about that too much. But I know, like, through podcasts, through other things, through my actions, they've seen me do things like wānanga and tane matua and bettering myself. And I think about my dad, bro, like, there's lots of things I would have liked more from my relationship with my dad. I never got to have the conversation that you were talking about that you didn't have with your dad, but you chose not to. Right? I never got that choice. My dad passed away when I was 23, and I wasn't aware of I was just living life at 23, you know, like a 23-year-old. So I think about, like, there's much more I would have wanted from my dad. But if I really think deeply into it, and the same applies to my mum, I can now see areas in my life that I'm successful in, with business. I linked that to my mum. But I wasn't really, like, she used to always try to get me to save to buy a house or do it, and I don't care. She was a financial planner, and I never cared. I wasn't interested. My dad started the journey of both Māoritanga and Wairuatanga, reconnecting. He got into religion, then he kind of, either way, he found God and he found his culture. And those, though I'm not religious as such, Wairuatanga and Māoritanga, Te Ao Māori, these are all the worlds I'm playing in now. So I'm like, man, how much did I actually get that I didn't even realize that I got? So I do have a confidence that would be the same for my kids if I died today. But there is one thing I just want to put all my effort into to try and achieve before I go. And I think I can achieve it. Even Lily, I think I've already done it with Lily to an extent. So by 3 years old, I've taught her to feel into her heart. And if she pictures anybody she wants to picture, so if she wants to picture her koro, who her koro's passed away, my dad, I've taught her koro's in her heart. And what I want to do with my kids, and I don't really understand what I'm doing. This is just what I want. I've just thought this is going to be a freaking awesome thing to do. Is I want to meditate with them and teach them to feel into their heart space, the presence, basically. And then sort of link that together, like make a bond in that presence and be like, now that you're in this state, you can feel your heart centered. If you can hear your papa's voice, just know if I'm gone, if I die tomorrow, you can just access this space and I'm always here. And from a selfish perspective, wanting to be a dad that's always there for their kids, I just want to leave that, bro. I want them to know. And within that, there's so much more. They can do that to anyone. They can, and hopefully it also is a door to finding themselves and having that peace with self. But that's what I want to leave, bro. Like,
man, oh man, that's some like deep kōrero maji. We're on that deep stuff, bro. You got two passionate papas here who's just... We're all about that growth, you know. We want to just live this life that creates this even better life for our children, bro. That's like, and we, bro, take it very seriously, don't we? Like, bro, you can't have these kinds of thoughts and not do anything about it, eh? You know what I mean? So, bro, just gotta give it up to you, bro. Give it up to you. You're an inspiration in terms of being able to walk alongside you in this journey and seeing how you do things. It's like very inspirational for myself as well. And just want to do a big mihi to all of the papa that are out there. 100. Those of you who are just, you know, championing this space of wanting to be there. You're choosing to be present. You're choosing to be there. You're choosing to support. And as I started this kōrero from the sister Millie, she also said something that is helpful for her in her relationship is that when the mama throws out a hint, listen. Right? If they sort of like say a comment like, oh man, I just don't have any time for the house, go and clean the house. Right? Oh man, man, I don't think I got enough time to do the dishes. Brothers, go and do the dishes. Because the way that she explained it is like so cool, and I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this, but the way that she said is like, if you look at the storage on your phone, and it's built up of your phone, photos, your apps, you know, all of the other things that collects your data. For a tāne, we have extra space because of what actually occupies our mind. Whereas wahine, their storage is completely at capacity.
When the kids are young and that much in need for their mama.
Because they always have to think about the baby. When baby's being fed, then you got to think about being sleep deprived, however it may be. But their storage is at capacity. And so the extra things that would make our lives as tāne better, such as food, like all those generic things, if they don't do them, we just got to take the initiative to sort of like step up even more. Yeah, you may have had a big day, but it's harder to say that my role is to provide and your role is to look after the kids. We got to move away from that standard of living. It's more around how can we just be the best for one another and for our tamariki. And if you're tired but you have storage space left, just do a bit more to support, because the way that Mel said it is that when you do these, it frees up more time for them to be able to give to you. Because as Tane, we want love because we once upon a time had it. Whereas when a baby comes in, we no longer have the abundance of the amount of love that we once received. And so we got to throw in some support so that the more that we do, it makes less for them to do, which gives them the time for us, which makes everything better. So just want to do a big mihi out to Millie for that amazing analogy. And just, bro, she gave, like, that was such a mean teachable moment for myself, you know. Not only do we have Papa who are wanting to be present, but then it's also a big adjustment for Mama. So that was like massive. So big mihi to you again, and again to all of our Papa. To those who are doing a great job, to those who feel like they could be doing better, there's opportunity, there's space, and there is time for you to actually step into that space more, the more that we're able to do for ourselves as well. So big kaupapa, something that, as you can tell, me and the bro are deeply passionate about. But yeah, thank you so much for the session, my brother. Any final words from you?
All of what you said, yeah, bro, it's beautiful to see Papa being more involved in lives. I actually got hit up on one of our reels that, well, I wouldn't say hit up, but I guess challenged on a thought I had around, I think the reel that we released a snippet from one of our other podcasts, is I talked about how thinking of the kids came more naturally to Renee, and I attributed it to motherly instinct. And this particular person believed it was, or the suggestion, or the way I interpreted her belief, was that it's more about conditioning. And there was a time, for Māori at least, that Papa were very involved with their kids, and perhaps in that time thinking of kids and family first came naturally too. And I don't know the answer to that because I'm not in that world. But it's beautiful to see Papa coming, like you said, becoming more present, fathers wanting to be there, wanting to do the work and have conversations like me and you are having. But yeah, all that stuff's deep. I wanted just to share a little light thing on the way out the door. I wouldn't call this parenting 101, but one of the things I do with my girl, which I don't think I'll stop it. I think someone might convince me I might learn a different awareness later, but I don't think I'm going to stop it. And we're cheeky as with each other, bro. Like, she goes, "Hey, caca face," and I go, "Oh, you shut up, Mimi pants," and we like go back and forth, like, "Oh, Mimi breath," like, "Oh, bro," like, and it gets worse. I'm just gonna stay there. I don't let it go to swear words. I don't let the energy go to disrespect. But while I'm sharing that, A, it's a bit light and it's funny, but B, it's another kind of, I guess, perspective I have on parenting, because I know, like, she hears us swear. I swear. She hears us swear. And I know there's a attraction to want to do it. She hears that word, that F word, it makes her, like, it stands out in the language, eh? And she wants to say those things. And I've taught her no, and she doesn't, bro. Like, she does not. In fact, we've turned her into the swear police. She tells us off for swearing, which is, I think, another good thing. But anyway, but I know she wants to play in that space. We play there. Why can't she? So I just give her place where she can play there, and it's just funny, bro.
That's all.
I just wanted to share that.
That's cool, bro. That's awesome. Too much, all right. Big shout out to our kids, man. Yeah. Big shout out to our partners, our wives who are just holding it down. Because, man, honestly, we think about something and they thinking about something else, bro. So it's like the responsibility is like, it's shared. You know, and I really, really sort of like how you said that Renee's an amazing mum. I can see that, and I just know my wife, bro, she's a next level mum, man. And the pressure that they feel is like incredible. Like, it's next level, the kind of pressure that they feel. So I just want to do a big mihi out to our partners, but also to the amazing mum out there holding it down. So big love to everyone, and catch you in the next episode.
Peace.
Peace.